This is not good. Not good at all. Tristan gritted his teeth, trying to fight through the pain. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't afford to. He'd used the gym buildings as cover and managed to climb the walls and get out of the enclosure. But this happiness didn't last long. He was stuck. He had a great plan. There was one thing he hadn't fully accounted for. Traps. The enclosure was surrounded by more than 100 traps to keep the monsters away from the precious human food. Yeah, there were other monsters in the world besides werewolves, vampires, and zombies. Just like humans had evolved after coming into contact with the virus, some animals had been exposed to it too. These animals mutated into all kinds of monsters. Some were so dangerous that even the werewolves were a little hesitant to mess with them. And the favorite meal of those monsters? Human flesh, of course. It had been more than a century since humans were on top of the food chain. Now they were at the bottom, with not even plants below them. Even the food they ate in the enclosure was specifically made for them from scratch. Tristan thought he knew where all the traps were hidden. Clearly, he was wrong. Now he was stuck in one of them. Luckily, he was far enough from the enclosure that no one could see him. But that was also a problem. Since he couldn't be seen, it was unlikely the guards would spot the night creatures either. If he got attacked, no one would be able to save him. Even his makeshift weapon wouldn't be enough to get him out of this mess. Not to mention, he was bleeding badly. The sharp teeth of the bear trap had dug deep into his foot. But the pain wasn't his only worry. Tristan was more worried about the blood he was losing. From what he had heard, the night creatures had an incredible sense of smell, and they all craved human blood. That made him a sitting duck. At this point, he even considered cutting off his own leg, but he didn't have the tools to do it. Heck, even if he had the tools, what good would that do? He'd be free from the trap, but then what? Sacrificing his leg would do more harm than good, making him bleed even more. That would just attract more night creatures, and fighting them off on one leg didn't seem like a good idea. In a way, he was better off with his leg stuck in the trap. At least while sitting, he could defend himself better than he could while hopping on one leg. While all these scenarios played out in his head, he heard a noise behind him. He tried to look back, but the pain in his leg kept him from turning far enough to see. The moon was shining bright above, and in the moonlight, Tristan could see the shadow of a figure approaching him. Judging by the shadow, it was probably one of the guards. A wave of relief washed over him. As much as he wanted to escape, dying was much worse than being captive. The guards would save him and take him back. He would definitely be punished for trying to escape. But since he had been personally marked by Serafina, he probably wouldn't get a harsh punishment. "Can you please get this trap off my foot? Oh no! Stay away!" Tristan's eyes widened in horror as the figure got closer. The smell of rotting flesh filled his nose. There was no mistaking it. His blood had attracted one of the undead. But what was an undead doing here? This was Lycan territory. The undead and vampires weren't allowed to set foot here. There was no denying that an undead was standing right behind him. Tristan struggled to get the hooked rope out of his bag, to at least have something to defend himself with. But before he could do anything, the undead grabbed his head and slammed it hard on the ground. Blood sprayed from Tristan's mouth as his head hit the rocky terrain. A constant ringing filled his ears and his vision blurred. Even in his daze, Tristan felt a gust of wind as blood trickled from his head. He saw the creature effortlessly rip the bear trap off his foot with its bare hands before lifting him up. Through his blurry vision, he got his first look at his attacker. The undead looked like a teenager, just like him, and had green eyes. Hair was falling out in patches from its head, just like the clothes hanging off its pale greenish skin. He was shorter and thinner than Tristan, yet he had a strength Tristan could only dream of. Before Tristan could see anything else, the undead bit down hard on his shoulder. Tristan wanted to scream, but his body didn't even have the energy left. His mind slowly turned foggy, and his vision grew darker and darker. So, this was the end, then Tristan thought, as memories from his life started flashing before him. The undead was about to sink his teeth into his flesh again. But before that could happen, Something pulled him from the creature's grasp and threw him aside like a discarded toy. He wanted to see who had saved him, but his vision turned completely black as he lost consciousness. Tristan woke up with a start. He could hear the wind howling as heavy raindrops tapped against the windows. He was a sweaty mess, his clothes drenched as if he had been caught in the rain, not sleeping in his own bed. He looked around, only to realize he was back in his bed. "How am I in my room?" Tristan mumbled. Was it a nightmare? As he remembered what had happened, his heart started racing. He could feel the blood pounding in his veins. Strangely, he wasn't in pain anymore. It made him think maybe it really had been a nightmare. But then again, he clearly remembered escaping the enclosure, only to run into an undead that bit him. The pain he had felt. There was no way in hell that was just a nightmare. There was only one way to find out for sure. Tristan threw the blanket off to check himself for wounds, but there were none. Not a single scratch on his body. His legs were fine, with no sign of an injury from the trap. He then touched his shoulder where the undead had bitten him. Sure enough, there was nothing there either. Was it really a nightmare? Tristan jumped out of bed and looked underneath it. The supplies he'd been saving for weeks were gone. There's no way in hell I imagined gathering all that stuff. The missing sack of supplies made him believe that what happened was real and not a nightmare. He could feel something was off, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Everything was a contradiction. His missing supplies proved he had left the enclosure just like he remembered, but the lack of wounds on his body told a different story. Tristan couldn't think of anything that could explain what had happened. Then he remembered someone saving him from the undead. Maybe that person brought him back here. But even if that was true, it didn't explain his missing wounds. He went back to his bed. His head was starting to hurt from all the thinking, but in his panicked state, he hadn't noticed something blinking in front of his eyes. It wasn't that he hadn't noticed it exactly. He had just thought his eyes were playing tricks on him because he got up too fast. But now he was back in bed. The thing kept blinking in front of his eyes, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. What is that? Tristan tried to touch the blinking yellow thing, but his hand passed right through it. So annoying. Just get out of my sight!
Calibration in progress.
Suddenly, his head started pounding like crazy. He had been fine a moment ago, but not anymore. He wrapped his arms tightly around his head, trying to make the pain stop. The pain quickly spread from his head to his entire body. Felt like his body was being torn apart and put back together at the same time. This endless cycle of pain went on and on. He could feel his bones breaking and then fusing back together. This kept happening until the shining yellow thing turned red, and then black. The moment it turned black, the pain stopped. He wasn't sweating anymore. His bones didn't feel out of place. Even his heart wasn't pounding anymore. Taking ragged breaths, Tristan placed a hand on his chest to calm himself. But as soon as he did, he realized something. It wasn't just that his heart had stopped pounding. It stopped beating altogether. He immediately checked his pulse and felt nothing. He started to panic again, and as he did, black letters appeared in front of him. He'd never seen symbols like these before, but somehow he knew exactly what they meant.
Transformation successful. You have been turned into error. The requested class does not exist. Sending a petition to the administrator to resolve the issue. Petition rejected. Initiating protocol. The system can resolve the issue itself. Issue resolved. You have inherited the genes from a Class C zombie and a Class A vampire. You have been turned into a Zompire hybrid. Due to the complexity of your new DNA, it will take 7 days for your powers to appear. Until then, you are free to live as a Class E human being.
What the hell is going on here? Tristan had no idea what was happening. His heart started beating again, and the black icon floating in front of him turned yellow. The day was getting weirder by the second. But before Tristan could ask any more questions, a wave of sleepiness washed over him, and he fell asleep.
Hey amazing viewers, it's Tristan here. Thanks for sticking with us. By the time of the release of this video, Only 8% of our viewers have joined the party by subscribing, and 92% of you might miss out on our next mind-blowing video. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and join the exclusive club.